Welcome to Week 3 of Project Management 4020 Multi-Project Management. This is Dr. Durbin, Adjunct Professor at St. Louis University School of Professional Studies. The topic for Week 3 is 2 program management domains outlined in your textbook. First one is program stakeholder engagement, and the second one is program governance. Please read selected pages from chapters 5 and 6 in the program management textbook. View the assigned videos on stakeholder management and visit the mindtools.com site where you can practice creating your own stakeholder power interest grid. In Canvas, please see the overview, agenda, assignments, and lectures in Module 3, and complete the assignments, which include the reading, the discussions, and a Week 3 quiz. A stakeholder is anyone that may impact or be impacted by the program or projects within the program. These can be internal or external. Figure 5.1 on page 58 shows a common stakeholder environment. I'll use Ameren as an example as I go through this diagram. At the top would be my PAC, my Program Advisory Committee, also called a Program Steering Committee. The program sponsors are part of that committee. I have myself here in the middle, the program manager, as well as my program team, which includes my schedulers. Connected to that is the project manager, of which I have 2 direct project managers that report to me and 5 that indirectly report to me. There are 3 PMOs that I have to report to as part of this program. And then the various entities that you see listed off to the left, I'm also engaged with. Suppliers, I have at least 4 or 5 suppliers that I have to create statement of works and make sure that they are doing what they said they were going to do. And then lastly, you can read more about the key program stakeholder descriptions on page 61 of your textbook. This diagram shows us why we need to do stakeholder identification, analysis, and planning. Each group of stakeholders may require differing levels of communication and engagement. Program managers interact with stakeholders in several ways. We engage stakeholders by assessing their attitudes and interests toward the program, includes stakeholders in program activity, and targets communication to their needs, interests, and expectation, monitors stakeholder feedback within the context of the relationship to the program, support training initiatives at the program level. At this point, we've read a lot about the responsibilities of the program manager. For example, in Chapter 1 on page 16 is a description of the program manager and a list on page 17 of their duties, which includes using the 5 program management performance domains and interacting with the portfolio manager, other program managers, and project managers. In Chapter 5, page 59 goes over the interaction with stakeholders and the program manager. And in Chapter 6 on page 83 covers governance-related responsibilities for the program manager. On page 60, Table 5.1 shows a common stakeholder register. Stakeholder register is a project or program document that has information about the stakeholders. It identifies the people, groups, and organizations that have an interest in the work and the outcome. It is a living document you need to start developing your stakeholder register as soon as you begin thinking about your program. A central component of stakeholder management is the stakeholder analysis. A stakeholder analysis is a process of identifying stakeholders before the program begins, grouping them according to their level of participation, interest, and influence in the program, and determining how best to involve and communicate each of these stakeholder groups throughout. A common tool used in stakeholder analysis is the the power interest grid, shown here on page 63, figure 5-2. The power interest grid is a matrix used for categorizing stakeholders during a change to allow them to be effectively managed. Stakeholders are plotted on the grid in relation to the power and interest they have in respect to the program. You can read more on the power interest deliverable at mindtools.com. I created a page in this week's module that goes over a power interest grid. I created while at SLU, and there is a link to a free tool on mindtools.com that creates a power interest grid based on your input. You can use this free tool when you work on your final project. On page 68, we find figure 6-1, which shows a typical program governance hierarchy with the interaction between portfolio, programs, and projects. The letter A shows governance and goes from top to bottom, including all projects, programs, and portfolio. B are program-related activities and derive the program benefits. The letter C shows the project-related activities and, of course, the product or service being delivered. Effective program governance supports success of the program in many ways, including ensuring goals remain aligned with the vision and strategy, securing funding, facilitating stakeholder engagement, handling communications, and making decisions to transition between life cycle phases, and many more. Governance starts with a plan that documents the framework, function, and processes of the program. It includes dependencies, assumptions, and constraints. It'll list the benefits and the benefit metrics. You can see other sections included in the plan on page 71. Program governance facilitates approval and funding based on the business case and charter. Just like project management, key decision points occur at the end of each program phase. During the monitoring and controlling of a program, risk and issues are managed and escalated if needed. Roles found in program management include a sponsor, a steering committee, the PMO, program managers, and project managers, and are described on page 79. During week 3, continue to reflect back on previous classes for universal concepts that cut across PPM. Once again, we heard more about risk and issue management, stakeholder management, change management, organizational strategy, and business value. In closing, I remind you to participate in the weekly discussion at least 3 times, watch for announcements, and complete your homework on time. At the end of week 5, I will be sending out the guidelines and requirements for your final PPM project that is due on the last day of class. This project will involve you creating several of the deliverables for a personal portfolio. The portfolio will be documented can be based on real life or fictional events now or in the future. Deliverables discussed in this class so far include the business case, charter, stakeholder register, stakeholder power interest grid, the communication plan, program roadmap, feasibility study, SWOT analysis, cost-benefit analysis, and the risk and issue logs. Other deliverables from previous classes include RACIs, WBS, budgets, milestone charts, and team charters can also be used as part of your final project. I remind you that you can contact me anytime via my email or through my cell phone. Thank you and have a great week 3.